If you've been following this channel for a while, you probably noticed that after finishing my Let's Plays, I have been putting together video reviews of them. I put together a video review after having completed Diablo, Diablo 2, and Resident Evil 4, and I fully plan to put together a video review after having completed Quake 2. You probably also noticed that I did not put together a video review for the original Doom. For this I am sorry, but it was my very first Let's Play. There's a lot of things in that Let's Play that I'm not really happy with how they turned out. If I could do things differently and better, I would. But I can't go back in time and fix things. It was a learning experience. And the end result of it was that the video quality on the different videos in that Let's Play varies wildly from crappy to okay to pretty good over the course of it. And had I had an S-video cable, it probably would have been better the entire time. Like my Diablo 1 Let's Play got better once I got an S-video cable. At least the visual quality of it did. That Let's Play as a whole was quite a bit better than Doom. Having said that, I was recording gameplay footage for my upcoming top 10 games of the 7th generation of consoles, and my component cables decided to quit working. What can I say? I thought they might stick around for a while, and they did for a surprisingly long time for a pair that had been through a fire. But they quit working and had to order new ones, so that video has been delayed for a little bit. So let's talk about Doom. Doom is a cornerstone of the industry. It's one of the most important games in the history of video games as a whole. Much like Mario Bros. 3, it didn't invent the style and format of gameplay, but it pretty much perfected it to a T. If you were to take Doom out of the picture, the future of the industry as a whole would probably be drastically different than what it turned out to be. Id Software had put two major innovations for PC gaming and gaming as a whole with their previous two games, those being Commander Keen, where they figured out how the slower processors of PCs could be used to do side-scrolling very well, and Wolfenstein, which figured out a way to use a 3D perspective for the very first time from the first person and do it successfully without like wireframes. There were a few minor things before that, like Catacombs 3D and Battle Tanks, that had a 3D perspective. It was always very simplistic. There were usually wireframes. There usually wasn't much in the way of textures on the floors and ceilings and whatnot. And Wolfenstein was the game that kind of set the standard for how first-person shooters would play from then on out. Doom was the one that changed everything, though. Then along came Doom, and it had a much more advanced engine that was doing things that nobody had seen before. There were a lot more enemies in Doom. There were a lot more weapons in Doom. There were stairs leading up and down, different levels, elevators, lighting that nobody had seen before, and all kinds of stuff that just made this engine incredibly powerful and extremely useful, to the point where it was one of the most licensed engines in the history of video gaming. People would actually pay id Software a lot of money just to get their hands on that engine so that they could create their own games. And there were some very good ones created with the Doom engine, such as Hexen and Heretic from Raven Software, who has a long-running history of taking id Software engines and doing their own fantastic games with them. Doom had a lot more going for it than just a graphically innovative engine powering it. The level design in this put this engine to excellent use, making all kinds of weird and creepy monster noises and a wide variety of monsters for you to fight that you would have to adapt your play on the fly. You would have to learn enemy attack patterns. You would have to learn what weapons go best in what situation, and you would have to learn the levels and the layouts and everything in order to get good at the game. Unlike many modern shooters where you'll be running down some kind of corridor-like thing, even if it happens to be outdoors, just shooting enemies and then hiding behind rocks for 5 seconds while your health replenishes. This requires serious skill to be good at, and you can tell that just by watching Let's Players play through this game, and speedrunners, especially speedrunners. They have a wide variety of tactics that they use to get through this, and this is one of the more speedrun games of all time. Doom presents you with a variety of difficulty settings, from fairly easy to exceedingly difficult, and there's one level above what I played it on, where it's what I played it on with respawning monsters. It's nightmarish because Doom requires a lot of going back and forth in the level because the levels aren't linear. So you will go back to an area that you already cleared and it won't be cleared anymore. I choose not to play on this level because, especially on the later levels in the game, such as Thy Flesh Consumed, it's exceedingly difficult and just about impossible on some of the levels on Thy Flesh Consumed. It takes the tough but fair difficulty of ultra-violence and turns it into a tough as nails and damn near impossible difficulty level that I am not a big fan of. If anything is a testament to how good of a game Doom originally was, it's the fact that there are still people playing it 20 years later, and there are still people modding it 20 years later. You've got a variety of source ports for you to choose from that you can get it to run on modern systems, and all kinds of mods and upgrades, and even stuff that's still going on today, such as Brutal Doom. And a couple years ago, someone put out an Aliens Colonial Marines mod that is actually better than the actual Aliens Colonial Marines video game. Go figure. There are a wide variety of engines that add all kinds of improvements to Doom without changing the gameplay one bit. This comes from a day when story and shooters was the last thing on anybody's mind. A story is just an excuse for you to go and kill things. And Doom's story is very, very basic. Basically, there's a company called the Union Aerospace Corporation. They built a whole bunch of facilities on Mars and started experimenting with teleportation. They accidentally open up a portal to hell, a bunch of demons pour out, and slaughter everyone in the base and turn some of them into zombies. That's your story. You're a lone survivor in this hellhole and you've got to fight your way out. The gameplay is where this game absolutely excels. You get a wide variety of guns that all do something different, and all have their own uses in different combat situations that the game puts you in. You won't survive on just your shotgun alone. You will need these other weapons to get through these various levels. The difficulty curves in a fair way, I think, in this game. It starts off not that difficult. The first level is very, very easy. The second level is a bit harder. And the third level is a bit harder than that. By the time you're getting to the 8th level of it, you're getting to real challenging stuff. The second episode is more difficult than the first from the beginning. The third episode is more difficult than the second from the beginning. The fourth episode is where it kind of throws the difficulty curve out the window. The very first level in it is one of the hardest levels in all of Doom. Some might call it unfair even, especially on a difficulty level such as ultra-violence, and it can be extremely tough. It is beatable, but you'll probably want to save and load a lot as you do fight your way through it. And be careful with every single shot you take because you're not given much ammo. And then you get to level 6 or 7 in that, and the difficulty ramps up a shitload once again with another one of the hardest levels in this entire game. The difficulty curve of Thy Flesh Consumed is honestly all over the place, but from the very beginning, this episode lets you know that it is not for beginners at all. This is for people who have been playing Doom for a while and know its ins and outs extremely well. This is for people who know the weapons extremely well and how to use them in any given situation. This is for people who can move extremely quickly in this game. This is for people who can sidestep very, very quickly and then circle strafe extremely well. This is not for your average player. It is tough as nails. The sound effects in Doom are kind of dated by today's standard, but they were fantastic for their time. You had all kinds of creepy growls and grunts and heavy breathing and whatnot as you traveled throughout the base, and every single enemy in it had its own unique sound, and there were a wide variety of enemies. All the guns sounded extremely powerful and badass. Of course, today's games have more realistic sound effects, but for the time this was very, very good and very cutting edge. Nobody had ever heard a game that sounded quite this good. The music stands the test of time if things like OC Remix are any proof, and how many people have taken them and made heavy metal versions, which is kind of ironic in the sense that a lot of these tracks were actually taken from heavy metal songs. If you look online, you can find a fairly comprehensive list in quite a few different places, including one on YouTube that takes the original Doom track and compares it directly to the real-life counterpart. Nonetheless, when he was either creating new music or taking a heavy metal song or hard rock song and turning it into a MIDI form, Bobby Prince deserves recognition. The music to this game is awesome. Doom is hailed as one of the single greatest games of all time, and I think it's for an extremely good reason. This game is fantastic, and I highly recommend playing it. Although I wouldn't recommend playing Thy Flesh Consumed until you're well versed in this game. It will give you a workout, it will give you a challenge. It gives me a challenge, and I'm still good at the game. If you have not played Doom at this point, you have a wide variety of choices of where to play it. The PC version will always rule supreme, and it's not that expensive to get it on a site like Steam. Then you can take the WAD files and load them up in something such as the Doomsday engine, which will add a wide variety of more modern effects to it that make it look a lot better than the original game. You can even get 3D character, enemy, and gun models in this game if you so choose. I personally do not like them because I think it exposes how old and rigid the animation is, where the 2D sprites kind of hide that somewhat. I would much rather just have high resolution 2D sprites. Doom is a fantastic game. It is one of the greatest games of all time, and it has my highest recommendation. This game is a masterpiece. It deserves mention alongside games like Mario 3, The Legend of Zelda, and Sonic 2 amongst the greatest games of all time. Thank you everybody for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe down below. That would be greatly appreciated. We'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks everybody. Bye.